Would you all please take your seats? Please take your seats, anywhere. Open seating. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this very special session on doing business with the UAE. I said this morning, we wanted this country to be known for more than being the hot travel destination. It is instead an international business hub and a great port, and a lot of transactions are done here. I know some of you would like to look into possible investments and trade alliances. So today, we have an excellent two speakers who will share with you how to do business here. To lead us into this conversation, may I have your attention, please? Shh. To lead us into this presentations, I would like for you to give a warm welcome to Marguerite Sotanen-Reinen, the former chair of Aon, one of the largest insurance companies in the world.
Distinguished guests, it's such a pleasure, Irene, to be here with you again this year for the 33rd time in Dubai. And we're here to talk about business and about doing business in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you two very distinguished speakers. And we'll have the sequence of events as follows. First, our first speaker will be His Excellency Mr. Abdullah bin Tuq Al-Mari. He's the Minister of Economy and Economical Affairs in the UAE since 2020. So he started in quite challenging times. Next to that, His Excellency is also, and that's close to my heart, he's the chairman of the Civil Aviation Authority. Very nice. And also he's on the UAE International Investors Council. Also on the UAE's Fund Board of Trustees. I'm sure he will also talk about something he did in the past, which was the Dubai 10X initiative, which is about how to create the city of the future, which I think Dubai has become. Our second speaker will be Her Excellency Dr. Mariam Bouti Al-Suwaidi, the CEO of the Securities and Commodities Authority in the UAE. Ladies and gentlemen, she's the first CEO, female CEO, and I'm very pleased to have her with her. Now, Dr. Mariam is also a very accomplished businesswoman. She's on the board of the Al Etihad Credit Bureau, on the Hakama Government Council, etc. So we have two distinguished speakers. The sequence of events is that I'll first have His Excellency come up and do a presentation about this confederation of 7 emirates, which the UAE is. Dubai is one of them. I'm sure he will tell you more about the background of Dubai and the UAE. And followed, then I will introduce Dr. Mariam. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, the Minister of Economic Affairs. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today with you. I've been looking forward. Thank you, Irene, for hosting us and for being here and bringing the Global Women's Summit to the UAE and to the Emirate of Dubai. That's a decision that you've taken to really represent the world as well, what the UAE have done in the last couple of years, especially in the policies and the women empowerment, and I would like to change that. I would like to change it from women empowerment to women-led empowerment. And that's the policy that the UAE mentality, the drive of that thinking that we are pushing today. I don't know, my presentation is on. I'm gonna speak about a couple of things. I have 20 minutes here on stage. I'll try to make it very brief. Ministers tend to speak for a longer time. And I want to make sure that I have time as well for Her Excellency Dr. Mariam as well to speak. And then we have some time as well to go into a couple of questions. I would like to, first of all, to speak about the macroeconomy of the UAE. And then I'm going to deep dive into the women-led businesses and empowerment that the UAE is leading. I have some exciting numbers. some exciting indexes, and I'd like to share this with everyone. First of all, if we look at the vision and the overarching strategy, in the last 3 years, I think now, since we took the Ministry of Economy back in July 2020, was the COVID-19 situation, the challenge of a pandemic that really hit the world. And when the challenge of that, the focus was on healthcare, the focus was on the health of the human beings, everything in the economy went to flush. Everything in the economy went to pause. And the UAE's leadership wisely started putting policies, very agile policies, very nimble policies that really focused on entrepreneurs and created a huge fund for entrepreneurs to actually get accessibility to it. So we looked at the last couple of years on a couple of strategies, and we focused on ease of doing business, human capital, because we understood as well from day 2 in the pandemic that the fuel for any economy is human talent. COVID-19, I think the positive thing about the COVID-19 was the digital transformation, right? Everything went virtual. And today, I think one important thing, Irene, we met virtually, I think, explaining so digital transformation changed even the economy and changed even the work that we do. And the last thing that we put in our strategy is, how do we access new markets? How can we start looking for trade and trade with new markets aspects? And let's give you a little bit of the macroeconomic level, beating the consensus. We were one of the fastest economies to recover from COVID-19. That was the actual KPI. The focus of our strategy is how do we recover very fast, and the UAE did it. We estimate our GDP growth in 2022 was about 7.6%. 6.1% of that is non-oil sector. I think that's one of the highest areas of GDP growth around the world, where we kept our inflation rate as well to almost 5%. The IMF, the World Bank, the Central Bank, expecting the UAE to grow this year from between 3 to 4%. But we have a KPI in the UAE. The leadership wants us to grow by 7% every year, to double our economy by 2031. So always, the question is always posed, what's the expected growth? Well, the Central Bank, the IMF, and the World Bank expects 3 to 4%. I would like to have 7%. And if I want to have 7%, I cannot have it alone, unless I have it with the businesses, with the empowerment that we have, and specifically with women-led enterprises. Our foreign trade, for the first time in the history of the United Arab Emirates, have surpassed 2.2 trillion dirhams worth of trade in 2022. It actually surpassed 2021 numbers as well of 1.8 trillion. So we are hitting record high numbers year by year. So something's happening, something's going right? I think the important aspect, but let me explain what are the last 3 years' policies that the UAE have worked on and what we did. So on the aspect of that, the overall reform and business environment, when you change anything in the economy, it takes about 2 to 3 years for it to actually measure the impact. When you change things in the education part, it takes maybe 10 years until actually graduation happens and the kids goes into the workforce, right? But in the economy, you need to measure it between 2 to 3 years of such policies. So what are the policies that we set back in July 2020? And I think a couple of them here. One, we overhauled the companies law. We gave 100% foreign ownership on mainland. We decriminalizations of checks. In the UAE in the past, checks, if they bounce, you become a criminal, it becomes a criminal case. We decriminalized check bouncing. We strengthened our anti-money laundering system because no economy in the world would like to host any anti-money laundering businesses in the UAE or illicit crime. And with that said, we had strengthened ourselves on the AML, on the aspects of it, and we have started showing a huge progress on it. Business and technology hubs on the local level, Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi and Area 2071 in Dubai, attracting entrepreneurs and so forth. World-class ports and airports as well. The UAE is always known for its trade hub. It's always known for being a seaport, an airport in the 80s. And now the UAE is a brain port, attracting talent from a seaport to an airport to a brain port. And I'll tell you more about what have we done in the regime of attracting talent in the UAE. So human capital. When we say the UAE is a brain port, we focused on the full enhancement regime of what we did in the Golden Visa. We introduced this Golden Visa for investors, entrepreneurs, exceptional talents and inventors and innovators, scientists, professionals and highly skilled workers, outstanding students and graduates, humanitarian pioneers, and frontline heroes, not forgetting those who really stood front in the aspects of COVID-19 and the pandemic. As well, we looked at the green visa, and we introduced freelance, self-employed people, skilled employees, investors, or partners to be on the green visa aspect. We understood very clearly in the economy, if you want entrepreneurs for implementing strategies, you need to attract talent to look at the UAE as a prospect. So we changed our regime to move to a brain port strategy and focus on. Digital and green transformation. The aspect of today, what the UAE's year of sustainability is this year, focusing on how do we move away from the traditional brown economy into digital and green transforming our national strategies. So we have the 50 economic plan, roadmap to the future. We have launched the Emirates blockchain strategy. We have the UAE's green growth strategy. We have the strategy for the fourth industrial revolution and the national program for artificial intelligence 2031. And there are many, many more programs and strategies that we actually work at in the UAE. So how do we move and transform our digital and green transformation as the aspect? And the last one is trade. So we came up as how do we open new markets? How did we keep 5% inflation rate, where other global countries are doing between 8 and 9% inflation rate? 95% of the UAE's of the UAE's goods are imported from the outside. But the UAE's currency today as well is pegged to the dollar. And the dollar in the last couple of years were appreciating against other currencies. So what we import today, we're not affected because we're paying in dollars, so we actually managed to import goods from non-dollar countries, and that way we managed to keep our inflation at 5 to 5.5%. We're hoping 2024, the inflation goes down to 2%. But what other thing we did is we opened more supply by opening trade venues with countries and nations. We started with India, Indonesia, Israel, Turkey, and we're under negotiation, Colombia, Georgia, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Costa Rica, and Ukraine. That's the move we're going on. And we're going to sign about 26 CEPAs, or we call it the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreements, by the next 7 years. How do we open more trade coming in and the trade flows to come in? Our president, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, said on the National Day in December 22, during the next days, the role of Emirati women will be strengthened in all fields. No society can advance the level it aspires to without the participation of women. His vice president, the prime minister and the ruler of Dubai said, we do not only empower women, but we empower the whole community through women. And that's the change of what a woman empowerment to women-led empowerment that we need to really focus on. So let's talk about a couple of policies that we're working on, gender policy and women empowerment, starting from the Ministry of Economy and the Space, the Gender Balance Council, the World Bank, and so forth. And here are a couple of them. Success to date. Some legislations, some policies, reform that we looked at. In 2006, we started with nurseries, cabinet resolution nurseries in government entities. So we have 51 nurseries as of 2020 in government to actually allow women to start coming to work where they don't need to worry about putting their kids in nursery. They are nurseries in government entities. On the ministerial level, we have men and women have the right to hold cabinet posts. Female ministers were about 27.5%. Maternity and paternity and parental leave as well, up to 3 months paid. Private sector, up to actually 5 days parental leave, and more than that aspect as well on the level of, on the private sector. In 2019, we have a cabinet resolution on gender wage equality. On the federal decree on equality of representation, the judiciary sector as well, we changed. In the past, women cannot hold a judge posts in the courts. And that actually changed a couple of years ago, and today women is actually empowered. Women in parliament, 50% of our parliament is women. And that's by decree. They have to be women, 50%. Women on boards. We've changed that, and I think Dr. Mariam knows my previous post in the ESCA. She'll speak about it. But we managed to put some legislation to actually change women being in boards, not just on the government entities, but as well women on boards in the companies that are listed in the capital market. And there is a lot of things that we are changing. So legal restriction on women's work, so all restrictions on women working night hours, working on broad subject category, job deemed hazardous, we have changed that. So allowing women to be working on a lot of areas. Workplace discrimination as well. We have amended our laws and regulations to look at that. And we have protection in the workplace, in public places, and family violence laws as well that came out very recently. 47% in the World Economic Forum have said the women represent the UAE workforce in 2022. 24% of female federal and local government board members in 2020. And we're seeing a huge growth coming forward as well when it comes to women empowerment in the aspect. 70%, this is interesting, which is an astronaut program today as well, are women, which gave the UAE the first Emirati astronaut as well. This is one of the last aspects that we are putting up, which is our mission, which women today are leading the science program of exploring the space, of exploring Mars, of exploring the outer space. UAE performance in key gender indices globally. So we have a couple of ranks. We're number one from the Sustainable Global Development Index in seats held by women in national parliament. That's why we're talking about 50%. We're number one in the world. Number one in equal job opportunities for women and men. This is Women and Men Business and the Law, the World Bank report. On the World Bank as well, we have the regulation protects against sexual harassment in the workplace, number one. In the World Bank as well, we have another report saying the regulation mandates an equal remuneration for the work of equal value. We're number one globally. Number one globally in the World Bank as well, which reported the equal business registration process for both genders. We're number 8 globally for availability of leadership opportunities for women. Number 12 globally, availability of openness, coverage of gender statistics. 14, number of women with degrees. This is the World Competitiveness Report. Number of female researchers, about 37 globally. And maternal mortality ratio, about number 9 in the Global Inequality Index by UNDP. These are global numbers that are there that positions the UAE in the top areas. And this is the kind of couple of ranks where women, the WPS index, the UAE is 24th globally as well, but number 1 in the region, in the MENA region. In the Global Gender Gap Index, Middle East and North Africa, we're in the top 10 as well. The UAE is second, and the global as well, and compared to the world as well. But the last thing is, our philosophy really comes, and I think this is my last slide. We're young, and we're fit, and we're ready to run. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really like your last slide, young, fit, and ready to run. And I happen to know that the minister is quite a good sportsman, so we won't ask you to run here unless you really feel scared. Thank you so much. Really very valuable insights. It's extremely, I think it's very valuable to see all those numbers and those indexes. And, you know, Dubai is on the move, UAE is on the move, and, you know, you lead by example this region. So thank you so much. Dr. Mariam, it's such a pleasure to introduce you. We're very much looking forward to your observations and insights from your perspective. The floor is yours, please.
Esteemed guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all. First, I would like to start with a thank you note, because most of you doesn't know that His Excellency, he was the one who nominated me for this role. So thank you. So thank you, Your Excellency, again and again. Okay, and he was the one, the first decision he took when he took lead of ESCA is to enforce one woman in the board of directors of corporate. So it was him again. He's the power here. Thank you. So I'm delighted to see such enthusiastic, participation by delegation from elite countries and companies. Thanks to Irene and the entire summit team for such wonderful organization. I welcome you all to the UAE, a country which prides itself in being the land of diverse culture and warm hospitality. So, what can I say about the UAE? Because I'm a proud citizen of the UAE, but I have devoted a substantial part of my life working in the, capital markets. So I've seen the highs and lows. And I can state with great confidence that the UAE is one of the best places for trade, commerce, and to establish yourself commercially. The UAE aims to be a diversified economy, where non-oil sectors, including trade, transport, industry, real estate, information, technology, and science, as well as, advanced services sectors such as education, as well as the healthcare, account for 70% of the total GDP. We have come a long way since 1971. When the UAE Union was formed, when the oil sector share in the GDP was 90%. However, over the last 52 years, its contribution has decreased, thanks to the economic diversification strategies adopted by the country. Currently, the oil sector contributes 30% of the total GDP. This diversification strategy and the efficient manner of executing it is rightfully recognized by the various economic ranking bodies of the world. His Excellency shared the statistic from the World Bank. So the UAE stands in the 11th place globally in 2021, and as per the World Bank annual Ease of Doing Business report. So it has risen 10 spots from 21st in 2017. The ranking marks, the first regional economy which secures its place among the top 20 categories. More recent ranking is in the IMD World Competitiveness Yearbook of 2022, a worldwide reference on the competitiveness of countries. It analyzes and ranks countries according to how they manage their economics. So to achieve long-term value creation, it doesn't depend on GDP, but it depends on how efficient the institutions, processes, infrastructure, and policies. So the UAE rank at number 12, just 2 ranks below the USA, but 2 ranks above Canada, a significant achievement. The UAE is ranked at number 3 for economic performance, and at number 6 for economic performance, at number 3 of business efficiency. So, and the UAE is the first destination for, and most attractive when it comes to foreign direct investment, FDI, in the Middle East and Africa region. But there are good reasons for this progress, I'm sure. So let me share with you 8 reasons for now. One is, it is well known that the UAE occupied a distinct geographical, advantage for having strategic location between Asia, Europe, and Africa. The legal system in the UAE is based on both civil code principles and recognized Islamic Sharia law, as well as common law principles in the financial free zones. So it is attractive to both the East and the West. Another reason is the federal political structure in the UAE is, in parts that require flexibility. You know that we have local government and federal government, but the federal government takes over for substantial matters, and federal laws supersede. The easy immigration procedures and long-term visas make it easy to settle down. Business require the dynamic and flexible legal structure to support their need. The commercial company law of UAE has our recognized 5 forms. Above and top of that, holding company structures, family offices, and special purpose vehicles can also be established. The most common used legal forms in the UAE are the limited liability companies, or a branch or a foreign office of a foreign company. So, and talking about the limited liability companies, the UAE law specify that investors specify the value of their capital in articles of association and company statutes. However, it does not require a minimum amount for limited liability company. That is great. This greatly facilitates the establishment of businesses and give investor flexibility in planning their projects. As per the also commercial law, foreign companies are allowed to establish a branch which does not require a local shareholder. So, and the requirement to appoint UAE national has been removed as well. So there is another option to establish in free zones or financial free zones. So the sky is the limit here in the UAE. Now, speaking about the financial sector, the UAE has thriving, a well-capitalized and well-regulated financial sector, comprising of banking, insurance, and capital markets, and now the virtual assets, which is all of these are facilitating the ease of raising capital for business. The Securities and Commodities Authorities, which is commonly known as SCA, supervises 3 exchanges: Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange, ADX, Dubai Financial Market, DFM, and Dubai Gold and Commodities Exchange, DGCX, for trading commodities derivatives. And we also regulate all associated market infrastructure institutions, like depositories, CCPs, intermediaries, apart from also regulating asset management, as well as financial products. We have a lot of objectives, but I could name few, is to complete adherence to the IOSCO principle. IOSCO is an international organization which comprises of securities regulators. So we assess ourselves periodically to make sure that our regulations are amended and improved. Also aiming to receive recognition as a developed market by index providers such as MSCI. There is an action plan in place and we are progressing. Utilizing the power of fintech for supervisory processes, as well as to regulate virtual asset. It is a challenging subject, but we are on it and we will work it in our favor. Now, I will give you a few numbers on the 2 markets, if I still have the time. Okay. ADX shareholders, ADQ. I will begin with ADX. So ADX cater to Abu Dhabi's financial sector and have a mission to make, which is to make the sector the largest and most efficient with diverse products and services. So just to give you an insight about the progress in 1 year, 2022 versus 2021 has been an increase of 8.5% in the number of listed companies, from 130 to 141. An increase of 58.3% in market capitalization, from 1,973 billion dirham to 3,123 billion dirhams. Derivatives trading also available, and ETFs, apart from listing SPAC. Now, speaking about Dubai financial market, DFM has also charted out a plan for fast growth and development of its market, infrastructure, products, and services, in order to become world-class marketplace providing quality, innovative, compliant products. DFM has established a higher committee to oversee its development plan, and we have witnessed very successful IPOs, such as DIWA, the successful utility company, and the transportation entity, SALIC. It has established a market-making fund worth of up to 2 billion dirham. And also, it had a 1 billion fund to support tech company, IPOs, and encourage innovative products and solutions. Moving on to corporate governance. So it's one of the key focus areas of the SCA's work has been enhancing the corporate governance frame, which is available to listed companies. The UAE Corporate Code has been aligned with the G20 OECD principles of corporate governance, and we keep on, improving it. And it is, this code of corporate focus on the responsibilities of the board, enhancing internal control and the role of audit, as well as strengthening mechanism for minority shareholders protection by facilitating their attendance and electronic voting in general assemblies. Now, COP28 is in the corner, so I'm sure we have to speak about ESG and climate change. ESG practices are incorporated through the corporate boards, through integrating, we have 3 reports: the governance report, the sustainability report, as well as the financial statement. So all of these, give very insightful information about the company and its sustainability efforts. Moving in step with the global concern on climate change, the upcoming COP28 being hosted in the UAE and the strategic initiative by the UAE government for net zero by 2050 carbon emission, the SCA is focusing its efforts to achieve the required sustainability in its regulated sector. So we are launching a set of guidelines aligned with international practices through a regulatory working group. It constitutes of all the regulators in the UAE, which focuses on ESG consideration and risk management and decision-making, ESG-related disclosure and transparency, and issuing ESG product instrument as per international practices. Recently, ESCA issued a regulation governing the issuance of green and sustainability-related bonds and sukuk. In order to encourage the companies, we provided a waiver from listing fees till December 2023 in order to encourage companies to issue green and, sukuk and bonds. I was planning to speak about fighting financial crime, but His Excellency, he has mentioned our efforts, but let me state a few numbers about women on board. The SCA's decision mandating appointing at least one woman on board, it was issued in 2021. And it has created an enormous impact to enhance gender diversity in the corporate sector. Before the SCA's decision, there were 27 women, board members. After the decision, this number has increased to 102. Yes. So the percentage of women of listed public companies has increased over this period from 3.2 to 11.7. Now, so the compliance rate is 78.3%, an indicator of the acceptance of the gender diversity. Our teams are following up with the remaining companies because, as you know, or as you might know, that we had the decision in 2021 and we had boards that were, there before the decision, so we don't want to interrupt. So once there is a vacant seat in any board and once they have the General Assembly, we enforce appointing a woman on board. Now, to conclude, thank you all for your kind attention and time. And I thank you and invite you to have a closer look at our institutions and processes while enjoying the traditional Arabic hospitality in the UAE. I'm sure that the summit will succeed brilliantly in highlighting other aspects of the UAE ecosystem, and which will result in bringing all of us closer together while achieving our respective objectives. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, here we go. The microphones are working. Thank you so much, Dr. Miriam, and thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your observations. I'm really thrilled because if you take a look, and if we talk about women empowerment, and that's what we're going to talk about on the various fields, whether it's digital, human capital, or brainport, I would like to ask by asking the Minister the first question, because you very much elaborated on, a seaport, airport, and a brainport. And can you give us a little bit more color on what a brainport, what does it all include, and what are your thoughts? How does it align with the strategies, etc.?
Thank you very much, first of all. On the brainport is the aspect of how the UAE works on attracting talent in various areas. If the UAE want to grow a 7% GDP growth, we will not find it in traditional economy. We will not find it in the aspects of real estate, for instance. We will not find it in the aspect of retail, maybe in digital retail, but we will not find it in the old ones. We will find it in the aspects of new entrepreneurship, with those who are entailed with innovation-driven enterprises. And there's a difference between small, medium enterprises and innovation-driven enterprises. And the UAE understand that we are looking for as well to find the 7% GDP growth. We need to look at innovation-driven enterprises, the IDEs. And I think the IDEs plays a big role in attracting talent as a brain, where the UAE becomes a place where to host a lot of people who has these innovation-driven enterprises that can actually transform the economy and put the economy on a more of a sustainable track. So that brainport aspect comes with the visa regime, the golden visa, the green visa, the freelance visa that comes in to attract a lot of the talents to come in to find the 7% growth that we need to double our economy in the next 7 years. It's a tough target. We did it the first year. This year as well, we want to do another 7% and keep doing it every single year.
Yes, and thank you so much. And I think also back to human capital, I think that while you mentioned that when you do change the economy, I like that, it's 2 to 3 years that you can influence a change. You mentioned also education, which takes a little bit longer, but of course is extremely important in an economy like the UAE with skilled capabilities. What are your actions on the education end?
On the education aspect is we have a huge reform as well to really push for education into the new areas, into new sectors. We are at the steering wheel at the moment in aspects of understanding what the economy needs and how to actually turn the universities and the colleges we have into creating the aspect of graduates into the area. So we need, for instance, in the space program, there's a lot of engineers that we need, a lot of scientists, a lot of researchers that will come into the space program that the UAE has initiated, not just for the UAE, it's for the Arab region. Our space program is called HOPE, the HOPE mission. And the HOPE means for the Arab region that the UAE is creating kind of a lighthouse to it. The second part is we need nuclear, for instance, nuclear reactors, nuclear engineers. We started actually our 3rd nuclear reactor and we know we need a lot of, and most of the nuclear reactors are women. And we're pushing as well for the energy aspect into that. We are looking into the technology aspects to run, digital commerce, digital economy, and there's a huge diversification happening on that. So there's a lot of that kind of new degrees, colleges that actually provide these now by the direction of the ministry, telling them where is the next future, next 5 years to 10 years, what are the aspects of new degrees that we need to have the economy really fulfilled with it.
Yeah, excellent. Very impressive. Dr. Miriam, you also referenced corporate governance. We have a lot of businesswomen in the room today. And I know a lot of them, that also the SME and the private companies do form a huge part of your economy here. Can you give a little bit more color on the private companies, but also on the plans of the government and the plans of the sector, the private sector, to privatize and to go public, to go IPOs? There's been activity in that field a lot recently.
Sure. Okay. We had witnessed a very, great IPOs in the UAE. So the reason for that is that the SCA, being the regulator, as well as the markets, we are pushing towards, having more companies in our markets, and also we have also came up with reform when it comes to the IPO processes. So we do not reject any IPOs, but we try to come up with a better solution sometime. And sometimes we have to raise the issue to our board to get an instant approval for these matters. So what happened is that we are helping companies to list in the market and in different sectors. So there are many efforts behind that, and also the intention here is to have the UAE become the hub for businesses and for more listed companies. Inshallah.
So if you take a look at women empowerment, there's been research that there are 5 ways to make a change. To create more, to have more women on boards, to have more women in business, to have more women in parliament. And those 5 means are either laws, which are quota laws, and we'll talk about it in a minute. It's institutional investors who are, making a stance. It's reports like McKinsey, it's women themselves, but it's also corporate governance. And I think that in the UAE, maybe you can summarize, because I think both of you elaborated on the things already happened. I think you have a law, we discussed the law. But if you have corporate governance where it's been appointed, you have definitely reports. Also, I know that the Global Summit of Women will actually publish a report which also elaborates on. The women themselves are in the room. But if you would have now a blank check, I'm also asking the minister, there's never such a thing as a blank check, but what would still be needed to be done here in the UAE to actually go to the next level of women empowerment for the UAE?
Access to capital. Access to capital.
Access to capital, here we go. Finance.
Finance. I think we have, if you look at numbers, women in entrepreneurship are more successful than men. But the accessibility to finance is one of the challenging aspects to fund women empowerment entrepreneurs. And I think the move forward will be in the UAE is to more supporting women accessibility to finance, because they're more better than men in doing business. Sorry, guys.
So you're raising sustainable finance, and I know and I know Irene also is coming forward. You have a question on that, Irene, or a comment, or? Yes.
Okay, got it. They just had to see me. First, a comment to the minister. Your enthusiasm is a great, great ingredient in making your country grow. If you see 7%, 7% will happen. So a question to you is, I did notice that UAE is open to investors and that 100% ownership is possible. So I just wanted to, if you could walk through, if say somebody here wanted to invest or create their own business in this country, what are the steps that are taken? And also, can you talk about taxes? What are the taxes on, women are very practical. We want to know these things. And to Dr. Mariam, I am so proud of you. Many of you guys don't know, there are very few women who are heads of SECs, okay? She is one of them, and that is a very big deal. My question to you is, in the corporate governance code of the UAE, is there a distinct statement about gender diversity in board composition? It's something that I've been pushing for. It's something that we accomplished at the last summit in Turkey in terms of our work with the head of the SEC in Thailand, who happened to be a woman. So I just wanted to know if that is in place.
First of all, if you allow me, I just want to talk about Dr. Maryam. Dr. Maryam is not just the first lady to run the security and commodities as well. She has a PhD in securities and commodities. So she is not only capable, but as well from an intellectual perspective, she has a depth that goes into that can actually speak the language and walk the language. And I think she is in the right place, in the right position, and I wish her all the best moving forward. I think on the aspect on taxes, let's go to taxes. I think that's the hot topic now coming up, that the UAE is going to implement corporate tax starting from next month. Tax is good for an economy. The question is why? Because it is on profit. So corporate tax is on profit. Means what? Means if I do profit, I pay tax. If I don't make profit, I do not pay tax. Then there's policy drivers on corporate tax. Means that I can need a tax break. I can apply for a tax break where I'm restructuring the company, putting the company in governance. Therefore, there is a huge aspect that really benefits an economy when you have a corporate tax. Third thing as well, it is one of the lowest tax percentage in the world. It's 9%. And I think that's very attractive as well. And fourth one, the last one, is when you have a corporate tax system, therefore you have more policy drivers. For instance, if you today have your R&D, for instance, investing a lot of R&D in the UAE, therefore there could be a tax rebate, for instance, or policy driver. I'm not saying that officially, but I'm saying that policy can be driven around taxes. When you have, for instance, could be one, more women into boards, into the work, you can have a better percentage of tax or reduction of tax or whatever it is. Government can actually put systems and policies around tax systems because it incentivizes the industry and the empowerment to it. Now, the last one, the question, I think you're asking about what does 100% ownership means. UAE for the last 50 years had a 51 local government, local national ownership, and 49 foreign ownership. And it has been going for about 20 to 2020, where we said, well, that cannot go anymore. We had, in return, 40 free zones in the UAE. So we had main shore, and we had free zones. And the free zones today is 100% ownership, but they cannot work in the mainland. They have free zones, and they have to trade, and they work globally. Mainland is a different aspect. So mainland has a 51-49. So what we did is in 2020 was that doesn't work. Let's go 100% in mainland as well. So today, the mainland has 100%, and the free zones are free zones. But what's the difference? The free zone will have no corporate tax. But on the mainland, corporate tax will apply. Said, all right, what happens if I'm on a free zone and I had a job to do on mainland? Then it will be on the qualified billing of the tax. That way you will have to pay tax as a corporate tax. And if you make profit, of course. So the point is, there is systems. We're not going to reinvent the system. We're not going to bring a corporate tax that nobody have seen before. You guys are multi-international, works on different tax systems globally. So the UAE is not going to embed something new. The UAE is going to instill something that is already there, is already international known, and that's the way we're going to take, because we want to grow at 7%. And at 7%, we need to reduce our aspect into red tape. We need to reduce a lot of challenges that faces companies, entrepreneurs. We need to attract talents into it. And as well, we need to put into a huge aspect into corporate tax, where when the economy is doing well and the profit is there, you pay tax. When it doesn't, you don't need to pay tax because the economy maybe might be in recession or might be whatever. We're taking the example of the pandemic, for instance. There's a lot of that movement can happen as well with it.
Thank you.
Okay, the second question. Well, as I have mentioned, our code is just followed the OECD and G20, principles. So the diversity should be there, and it is there. So any member who has, we have the remuneration committees in the corporates. So anyone fit with the requirements can nominate him or herself. So regardless of your ethnicity or gender or whatever, I mean, you can nominate yourself. And if he or she was prevented from getting selected, then they can come to ESCA and file their complaint, and we will look into that for sure. So the matter is really regulated, and there should be diversity in the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So I have another follow-up question on the tax, because I know there is an initiative in Europe to take a look whether we should actually offer deduction of taxes to companies who do good or even better or the best with women on boards. Is that something you would consider here in the UAE as well?
Maybe.
Okay.
I might pass this question to my colleague, the Minister of Finance. He's handling the tax. I spend the money.
Yeah.
He collects them, so.
Yeah, but it's an interesting movement that there are some people who are really advocating this. Dr. Miriam, you also mentioned COP28, and of course this is a huge event coming up next year, later this year in the UAE, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai and the region. And can you give us, because you mentioned green and carbon, I think that you see that there's a lot of initiatives already on the way. You take this very seriously. You're chairing this whole COP28 later this year. What do you expect from your finance end on it?
Well, I mean, of course, we would like to see more efforts are done and executed in this field. We would like to see something applicable here. I mean, because I know that in these events there are talks and suggestion and discussion, but we would like really to have decision this time. And I'm sure there will be decision and good decision, in order to have a sustainable, world. Because this is, we all care about that. It's for our children and, future generation. So I believe there will be lots of decisions and lots of initiatives also. Because, I believe His Excellency Sultan, he's the head of this project, Your Excellency, and there are so many entities involved, and there are so many teams that they were formed just for this purpose. So it's like, it's up and running, and I'm sure that you'll hear a lot of good news during the event, inshallah.
And I think that, Your Excellency, I think that UAE and the region can use the brain power of the female executives, because it's been proven that when there are female executives on boards and in management teams, that companies are more sustainable, more productive, more innovative. And I think that especially in the UAE, with, where you've proven your points also in Dubai, where you've gone from an oil-led economy to a non-oil-led company, you showed the numbers. I think that's really impressive, and it's a way to lead the world. I'm going to take a look whether there's anyone has one question to ask? Okay, I see the lady here with the tie. Come on forward.
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with us. And thank you again, Madame Natividad, for allowing this beautiful beacon of hope and reassembling of strong women. Talking from a specialist expert in blockchain and Web3 technologies, the UAE has kind of become the promised land for Web3. The big question that we have right now in Europe is regulation. We're talking about MICA, we're talking about the SEC, over in the US also as well. It is well known that the UAE has won the race on regulation for Web3 and digital assets and the metaverse even. How did you manage to get that mountain moving so fast?
Yeah, is it appropriate to ask Dr. Miriam the question on virtual assets regulation? Because we've discussed it together.
Well, we have to just follow what is happening in the world. It was there, and it has to be regulated, because, we had some, like news that there are companies that is doing this activities without being licensed. So we had to step up and to take a decision to, regulate it. So, there's like now we have 4 entities in the UAE, which is, they are regulating virtual asset. VARA, which is Dubai Authority, ESCA, and we regulate the whole UAE, including free zones, and the FSRA and ADGM, as well as the FSA. So we have 4 entities so far. Of course, we are just in the beginning here, but we have decided that of course, the local authorities as well as local licensing authorities can take the lead and regulate, but there should be like a bilateral agreement between us because we still have the authority to supervise and inspect all companies across, the mainland. So this is in regards to the digital asset. Your Excellency, do you have anything
Would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, I would like to say that we have an address for the ministry in Abu Dhabi, an address for the ministry in Dubai, and we have an address on the metaverse. We're the #1 ministry in the UAE that has as well a full metaverse address where we actually take in requests, provide services. So we embrace the future in the aspect. How can we embrace it if we're not in the aspect of trying to be part of the virtual asset? I think it's in the UAE, our leadership has set the aspect of it's a land of opportunity, where when we see future technologies, we do not shy away from it, we do not run away from it, but actually we work closely with it. And I think that's one of the most important aspects where we saw the future technology after, and we said, yeah, why not? Come, let's try to regulate it together. And that aspect by itself is very welcoming. That's when the UAE becomes a brain port, right? Everybody's coming in, looking at the UAE as a place for establishing, creating business. That way we went from 51-49 to 100%. These policies, the change of these policies really then imbalance with impacts that really attracts businesses, and we're really welcome to actually focus on, even more and try to actually go into more details on it.
I'd like to add to His Excellency. I mean, our resolution, it's number 111 of 2022, it was issued from the cabinet. So this is like having this decision from the cabinet means it's really very important. So there was objective. The objective of this regulation is to, of course, regulate the activity, as well as to provide the framework to, of course, protect investors from illegal, activities, as well as to attract, foreign investors to come to the UAE and have the right economic, financial regulation in the UAE.
Let me summarize. I'm looking at our president, Mrs. Irene Navitidat, who's going to take over in a minute. I'd like to summarize this session as one. Young, fit, and ready to run is the United Arab Emirates. We're not going to ask them to run all after you now outside the room, but I think it's important to note that there has been tremendous movement here in the United Arab Emirates. We've seen the economical numbers. We've seen also the indexes on female empowerment. We've seen that while the globe is suffering, many of us are suffering in our regions and countries. This region is still really doing extremely well, a lot of growth. And they want to grow further. And I was extremely pleased to see, you don't know, but this conference, Your Excellency, is being attended by more than 950 participants of 72 countries. And some of the countries you referenced on your presentation are present here today. So thank you so much for partnering with us. And thank you very much for listening to us. I'm going to give it to the President. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Dr. Mariam. And the future is female, Your Excellency. Thank you. Irene.
Thank you, Marguerite. Let me just say that I heard on CNN that there's a minister for AI, and the only one that holds that position in any part of the world. So that tells you when the minister says we want to embrace change and new technologies, they're serious. So thank you, Marguerite. Thank you, Minister Abdullah bin Turk. And thank you, Dr. Mariam, for this great presentation. Thank you. Okay, now let me tell you what's going to happen next. We will all leave the room, is what we're going to do next. At 5 o'clock is the opening ceremony. Listen to this, please. Just hold your horses for a minute, okay? We will, after you leave the room, we are going to designate areas by country. Can I have your attention, please? We're going to designate by country where you will sit. So you look for that okay? Don't look for IBM. We're not going to do it by corporation. It's going to be by country. So if you're from IBM, but you belong to Turkey, you go to Turkey, okay? Because we want you to recognize where you're from. Tomorrow at breakfast, you will be organized by language. So look for that. At the gala dinner, you can go back to both country and corporate designations. So look at what it says at the top of each table, and that will tell you, and there will be staff here who will guide you as to where Egypt is, and if there is no Egypt, because there's not a big delegation from Egypt, all two of you. But look, okay, you got the instructions, and there's another Egypt, so look for your country designations. With that, let us please leave the room, and we'll see each other at 5 o'clock.